Okay, so to get this video started, we have to make sure that you've done the last one. The last assignment, we added an ultrasonic sensor and plugged it into our robot into port A. If you haven't done that, go back and do the other one first. In addition to this, you'll have also have to done maze number 1 because that's where we set up the code that we're going to use in this video. So the first thing I want to talk about is what the heck is this thing? This sensor is the ultrasonic, and we hear that word sonic, we know it's sound, which is weird because it looks like it's eyeballs where it's looking out and using light, but it's not. If you look very carefully, there are little grills in here. These are speakers / microphones, and they're not a normal speaker or microphone. Let's talk about what they do right now. First of all, there's some animals in nature that actually use ultrasound or echolocation. Basically, what these animals do, bats and whales here, we can see, they make weird noises. Some of them are things that we can't even hear as human beings because they're outside the limit and the range of our hearing. And they bounce these squeaks that they make off of, and they send them out. And when they hear them bounce off of an insect, or in this case, a fish that the whale wants to eat, or an insect that the bat wants to eat, from that, the sound and how long it takes to come back to them, they can tell how far away something is, what the location of it is, because they have 2 ears to kind of parse that out, and also the texture of the item that's flying around, so they can kind of get an idea of what that insect is or whatever. So that's how animals use this in nature, and again, sound travels at a certain speed. So if it bounces back quickly, the animal kind of has an idea that this thing is very close. Now, you can kind of do this yourself in some ways. For example, the sound, like even though we can't do this and hunt the way that bats or whales do, if I hold this clipboard up to my face and I keep talking and this thing gets closer and closer, I can certainly tell at this point from the way that it sounds, I can tell that there's something very close based on how the sound that it makes coming back to my ears. So we can do a very, very basic version of this. Like if you've ever walked in the middle of the night in a hallway that's dark, then you might know that based on if you're talking while you're doing it, you can kind of tell when you're about to run into a wall, hopefully. All right. Another way that you've seen this technology is in ultrasounds. A mother is pregnant with a child, and a woman goes to the doctor for an ultrasound. And mom goes in there, and based on how long it takes to bounce these sound waves back and forth, the computer is able to make an image, a really basic image, and tell some things about the child who's not been born yet. And it's because the sound bounces back in different ways, and it takes the sound longer to bounce back and forth. So then let's go and talk about how does the ultrasonic sensor on our robot work. So these are speakers and microphones both, so it will put out a sound and it counts the number of seconds, which is actually way less than 1 second for our sensor, because sound goes very, very fast. If you look here, Google says it goes at 767 miles per hour. And there are jets that fly that fast, but none of us have probably been that fast ever in our life. So it takes like a fraction of a second for the sound wave to go out, bounce off of the paper, and then come back to the robot. This is so good at counting time that it can tell very accurately how long it took and then convert that into a distance reading for our robot. So basically something like this. It just bounces the sound off and the other one picks it up. So one of them makes the sound, the other one picks it up as a microphone. Interestingly enough, these have to be spread out a little ways. That's why they kind of look like eyeballs. It's not because it wants to look like eyeballs, although that's kind of cool. And you can turn the lights on too with Legos to do that. But the reason they have to be spread out and they can't be right next to each other, because otherwise it would pick up the sound through the plastic. So they have to like spread them out so it actually bounces off and then comes back, and it can time how long that took. Obviously, if something's very close, it's not going to take very long at all. If something's farther away, it's going to take longer. And there is a limit to these. They can only go so far. And by the way, it's ultrasonic, which means you can't hear the sounds that it's going to make. So to begin this assignment, what we have to do is we're going to go into our folder. So you're going to go down here to this little folder icon and click on that. You'll get something like this popping up, and then go to Documents. Now, if you've been saving this somewhere else, I've noticed some people save it to the desktop or wherever you've been saving your code, you're going to need to go there. But for most of you, it should be in Documents. And here we can see the maze 1, which was the PVC pipe maze that we did. Or maybe you could use the floor maze code. That might work as well. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to copy this. And then I'm going to right-click down here somewhere in the open, and I'm going to paste a copy of it. There it is, and then I'm going to click it, or you can right-click and rename this new copy into Ultrasonic Maze. All right? So there it is, Ultrasonic Maze. And I'm going to double-click to open that up. And actually, I've never double-clicked a file to open it up with Lego Spike Education. Oh, no, you can't do that. Sorry. Forget that. Don't double-click it. My apologies. I made a mistake on that last part. Because we're using the web app, you can't actually double-click that. It'll open up the old version, and the code won't work. So instead, what you need to do is go to your browser, go to spike.legoeducation.com. There'll be a link in this assignment for that. Check in the Canvas page if you need a link. And it takes a second for it to load. We're going to go to Prime, and we're going to go to Open Project, and we're going to open up that file that we just made. Ultrasonic Maze, there it is. And here we go. So this is a copy of it. We're not going to use some of these things, but we'll use some of it. But for example, this stuff, we're not going to tell it to move forward anymore an exact amount of inches. Instead, here's the big idea for this. We're going to have it go until it gets a certain distance away from the PVC pipe wall, and then tell it to stop, and then turn. Okay? And I'll show you how to do that right now. And just to be clear, you can't use your old code to solve this maze, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually move your robot to start at different locations. So you won't be able to just measure how far it goes, because I'll have it kind of stopping, especially at the beginning and the end, I'll have it stopping at different locations to make sure that you've used the ultrasonic. Plus, I'm going to look at your code. So we'll use this as a guide because it has most of the things that we need, but we're going to be replacing the move blocks, these move forward for 17 inches or whatever, those blocks, we're going to be replacing those with move forward, and well, I'll show you in a second. Okay, so before we go any further, I want to show you what the assignment's going to be, and then I'll show you how to code it. So this is a weird type of a maze. I made it so that it's very simple, but it has very long sides, because you're not going to be able to just measure it, because a lot of times, you might think, well, if I just go 34 inches, which is 17 and 17 and turn, but I'm going to change the assignment by starting your robot in a random place along the straight side and ending it with a random wall that your robot has to stop and not run into. So let's check this out. I'll show you. So if yours is successful, you could run it from here or here or here, because it's going to go until it almost runs into the wall. It's going to detect the wall. So we're not going to be able to program it at a certain amount of distance, because I might start it randomly in any spot. So for example, it goes like this until it hits the wall. Oh, it didn't hit the wall. That's perfect. It waits 1 second, detects the wall, waits a second, turns. And then at the end, I'm going to put my foot down at a random spot, and it has to not run into my foot. Hello, this is Jeremy. Sorry about that, I got a phone call. So you can also see that, you know what else could happen? It might do something like this. Instead of starting it here, I might tell you, hey, start it all the way up here. So if you program an explicit distance, like in inches, it's not going to work because you'll run into the wall before you hit it. So it might be like this. And hey, maybe this time randomly, I'm going to let it go all the way to the end. and not put my foot down. Or maybe I'll put my foot down right here. So you have to program all your turns using the ultrasonic sensor, all the straight sections rather, using the ultrasonic sensor. And again, it's not going to work for you if you just use distance. And the whole point of this lab is to basically teach you how to use the ultrasonic sensor. That's why I'm going to be real picky about how you do it. So let's go check out how we're going to code this, all right? So earlier I had you guys open this up, and this is our code from the last one. So let's go ahead and start off by just moving this over. We're not going to use any of these move forward sections. We're just going to use either a right turn or a left turn, however you're running it, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and just delete all this and just keep the turn from last time. And remember, you should have your file set up so it does this. So, all right, so let's check it out. What do we need to do? What we need is we need this robot to just start moving forward. Okay, so go down to the movement. You can click over here and find movement. And we're going to have it, instead of moving forward for rotations or whatever, we're going to use this one that just says start moving forward. And if we don't do anything else, this thing is just going to keep moving forever. But don't worry, we're going to change this. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to control, and we're going to go start moving forward, and we're going to have it wait until something happens. And then what are we going to wait for? We're going to wait until this sensor is 6 inches away from the wall. So we're going to wait until the ultrasonic sensor is about 6 inches away. So let's do that. Okay, so you go down to sensors. It's in this, I think it's light blue. I'm colorblind. Forgive me if that's not the correct color. And see this one here? That's that little picture, if you look, is this thing. So we're going to grab that and drag it out. We're going to wait until, and see how that clicks right in here into the wait until, this little hexagon. And hey, it says port A, so you've got to make sure you've got your sensor plugged in. This sensor is plugged into port A. And it's closer than, that's what we want, and we need to change it to 6, and you don't want it on percent, you want it on inches. So we're going to grab this thing, drag it out there, and lock it into wait until port A is closer than 6 inches. Okay, and then what? Well, we're going to stop our robot. So go back to movement and just put stop moving. This is really important. You have to put in a delay so it waits 1 second before it starts turning on and looking for the sensor. If not, it'll detect the wall again and it'll mess your program up. So let's go back down to control, and we're going to wait for another second. Okay? This is very, very important. Okay, so there we go. Now we have that. Actually, you probably don't. We may not need that, actually, now I think about it, because you know what? We're going to have one right here, won't we? So it'll stop moving, and I'm going to go to duplicate this one, and I'm going to put it down right here. And we'll have another right turn. Oh, I forgot. Sorry. We do need that. So we're going to wait 1 second, and then we have to do our turn. I almost forgot. And remember we saved our turn, which was move right 100% for 0.5 rotations? We're going to put this right here, and then we're going to put another wait. This is very, very important, okay? We have to wait a second. Now, wait a minute. If we go up here and we just go duplicate, we'll have a delay built in, and we'll clip this right here. All right, now let's see how this works right now as it is. So let's connect our robot, and let's see how the first 2 turns go, and then we'll put one more in because the last one's going to be a little different. At the end of the last one, we're just going to stop the program. We're not going to do a turn because it's done. So let's go ahead and open that and connect it to the robot. Let me download my program and code, and let's give this a try. Okay, let's see how that works. So it's waiting for me to press that one, and just put it down in a random place. It's got to be facing the wall, so I'll put it here. detects the wall, waits a second, turns, waits a second, detects the wall, turns, and now we just need to add one more thing. We need to add, this one's going to be a little bit different because we're going to go until it detects, you know, I might put something like this here, or just put my foot down like I was earlier, or maybe I'll let it go all the way to the end. You never know. So this last one, we're going to have it go until it's 6 inches away, and then it just stops. It's not going to do the turn. Okay, so let's fix it. To do that, plug this thing back in, and we'll reconnect real quick. Kind of annoying you have to do all this clicking every time you reconnect it, but that's okay. So I'll go back up here. This was the turn, so this is where it starts. I'm going to right-click right here and duplicate and put this on. Let me move this up so we can see it a little better. Oh, sorry. I got to change my setup here. My bad. Okay, so let's go ahead and move this up a bit so we'll have room for our other code. We're going to go right up to here, which is, this is the first one. It waits for you to get your finger out of the way, moves forward, detects the wall, and then it waits again another second. So let's go right up here and duplicate this part and throw it down here. This last one though, instead of the turn at the end, we don't need a turn at the end. Then we're just going to go over here and you're going to go to Control, and you're going to stop, and you're going to exit program. Stop and exit program. Okay, let's download this and see if it works. Go over here. Okay. And again, start it in a random place, but facing the wall. This time I'll start it really close. Make sure it's straight. It was off a little bit there, wasn't it? This time I'll put my foot like right back here. And it's done. So that's a successful program. Once you get it to this point, and you're sure you've tried it out with different distances, try it again, start it at a different place, then come and get me. I'll look at your code on your screen, and then I will grade your robot. And I'll watch and make sure the code runs okay. Hey, thanks everybody. Oh, and before we go, we're going to make sure that we click to save our code if it's not already automatically saved. Hey, thanks everybody.